Once again, welcome back to another episode of the Higher Ed Podcast. I'm your host, Kamar Dejar, and I'm flying solo today. We've got an amazing guest. Dr. Aman Kwatia is with us, and we're really lucky and excited to have her. Doctor, could you please just kind of introduce ourselves to your audience? What's your origin story? How'd you get here?
Well, hello, audience, and thank you for the invitation. And the origin story is not as exciting as my Ghanaian last name, Aman Kwatia, because it actually started in Florida. So I am from Florida, started off as an educator in the community college system and just had a great time teaching with technology. And that ended up being a part of that trajectory into technology related leadership roles and eventually my PhD in learning sciences and technology at Lehigh University. So I have had the privilege, I think, of being in education and in industry because I did work as a consultant in the software industry for a bit. And after that, it's just been really leaning into all of the non-traditional educational opportunities that higher ed has. So all of that landed me here eventually from
Sure.
Florida to Pennsylvania to Virginia and now to North Carolina at the North Carolina A&T State University. And
Oh,
that's
wow.
Aggie Pride.
I had a couple coworkers that were Aggies back in Greenville, North Carolina. So those were my guys too. So good stuff. Was education always the route that you wanted to go, or did you kind of make a pivot in education?
There was a pivot. My undergraduate degree was in mass communications, and it was actually the programming and technology part of mass communications. And when I think back at those days at the University of South Florida, I was always trekking this way because my student job was videos for distance learning.
Hmm.
Even my research ended up being research that set me up for this. But no, it was a pivot, and the pivot was spending time during the summer, actually in a place called Immokalee, and just seeing what that giving back and that education again, the non-traditional offerings meant to that community. And so that's when I made the pivot to education because of just the positive affirmation that I was getting, not only in Immokalee, but even as a student tutor,
Okay.
like while I was in school. So that was it. I wanted to be an educator.
Got it. Got it. So there's so many different ways, with your software background, the what's big right now is micro credentials, AI in higher ed, distance remote learning. So, I guess maybe let's start with the micro credentials, right? Why is that something that you're passionate about? And can you tell us a little bit about when you think of micro credentials, what do you think about?
When I think about micro credentials, I think about freedom, I think about empowerment, because to me, it is a way to lower the complexity of attaining competencies and new career paths. I think of accessibility, of course, and lower costs. And I think of the self efficacy part of it because typically those short term focused educational experiences give learners that type of feedback that they have attained what it is that they set out to do. They can see the application in the short term of what they're learning, and they get the feedback in a lot of different ways, not just a traditional letter and some percentage,
Right.
but they see that certificate, they see that badge. And to me, all of those things are uplifting and they help with persistence. So I love anything that is an alternative to help people overcome whatever might be a temporary or even a long-term, you know, barrier, if you will, to getting to what's next for them.
Absolutely. Do you think the pandemic kind of ushered us or rushed us into, thinking more seriously about micro credentials?
I think the pandemic rushed us into thinking more seriously about access and learner success and really understanding the various stories of the people in our classrooms. I don't know that people were very clear about what a micro credential is. And I say that because obviously I'm sure you've had some conversations where the definition is still kind
Yep.
of up,
Yeah.
for grabs. So I'm not sure that they knew what it was that these learners needed to uh, obtain, but I am sure they were thinking of some of those things that I told you gave me the passion, the access, lowering the complexity, having things in short bursts, helping with anything that was uplifting and increasing learner efficacy and costs so that people could get to their next destination. So a lot of good things came out of the pandemic. And so now it's time to start defining some of this. And it might be different, in different contexts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So where would career ready courses kind of fit into micro credentialing? Are they the same? Is it something totally different from your perspective?
From my perspective, yes, I would say career ready courses are a great partner with micro credentials. We can use them in co-curricular settings as we've done at North Carolina A&T. So even, our students in our student organizations, students in degree programs, and then students in the online and continuing education space. And that's the area that I am leading. So it's online, continuing education, and summer sessions. All of that comprises the extended campus at North Carolina A&T. So the career readiness and micro credentials are a natural partner, and I think that's the great place for them. And our goal has been from the very beginning to embed career competencies into every online degree program. It's a way to increase ROI. And it's, again, also a way for persistence and just making the various career competencies visible to the learner.
Yeah, so it seems like it's a drive to prepare the learner for their career or their work for their work ability or marketability once they finish the training, right? So and you talk about dashboards and aligning job postings and how intricate is this when the way that you're working with it and thinking about it.
It's actually great. Basically, what we do and what we have are alignments with zip codes, so the academic programs, and we look at the certifications that are aligned with some of those jobs for the various academic degree programs or certificates. We look at the skills, the emerging skills, uh, and even the delta between the sample of job postings that have people in them with certain skills, and then what the employer desires for people in those roles to have. And we take that delta, if you will, between here's who's holding this position right now, and here are some of the things that we can scrape from publicly available, resumes. Here's what people desire, or here's what's next. Now, how can we innovate? How can we embed career competencies and distinguish our programs accordingly? And so basically, all we do is gather this information so that we have conversations with our faculty. And I have always said I'm amazed at what faculty can do and what they will do when they have good, actionable information. And so that has been a real pleasure to watch the various faculty embrace embedding either already developed micro-credentials, because we started with those partners, and that is important, or developing or modifying their own curriculum, the assessments, the assignments based on some of the data that we're able to provide, like I was telling you with the zip codes.
And then the strategic partnerships with industry and advisory boards become not only more important, but it's almost like a collaboration to even, I guess, it becomes even easier to prepare the learners for the outside world and what the expectations are.
It is. I do think that happens. We like to talk about it in terms of co-design. It's very, very rare, if at all, that anybody that I have seen in Aggie land will just say to an employer or vendor, just, give us the curriculum and we're going to offer this micro-credential. Because the first idea with an approach like that is, are you indirectly trying to throw shade saying we're not doing a good job? So why don't we talk about what the needs are? I call it humble discovery, right?
Okay.
And make sure that they are really coming to learn about the students, the strengths of our faculty, and then having a conversation about the future of work, their needs, and where we can work together on the curriculum. And we're doing so much of that on so many different levels at North Carolina A&T. So it won't be just, an automatic, here is a micro-credential, without some type of examination, conversation, and alignment. So I think those types of partnerships are the ones that are best. And then, of course, the full circle is when we get a chance to test them out, the test before you invest. And we've done that with actually a sports analytics micro-credential that we're working on developing right now.
Oh, nice. Okay. So as much as I want to get into the AI revolution and that transformation, I'll probably save that for another conversation. But I would love to hear you kind of unpack the online transformation, right? I know that's another, passion of yours. And I guess even just this recording, it's very intricate. So I don't want to try to go down that road with you, but I'd love for you to kind of share, some of those concepts with the audience.
So in the online space, we have definitely seen a shift after the pandemic, and it's a shift that some in the traditional education space were not ready for and not ready to still reconcile. And that is the fact that traditional students are actually interested in online offerings, but online offerings were not always designed for the traditional students. Most of the students that I work with are the post-traditional college age students. So we talk about things like lifelong learners, et cetera. But we have quite a few 18, 19-year-olds who also would like to have an online learning experience. So there is definitely a great opportunity right now for transformation in ways that we engage with learners, in ways that they live. I love to say, why can't our learners learn the way that they live? And if we look at how people are using technology in their lives, when we make that transition for teaching, whether it's formal or informal, there are things we can learn from it. And I'm just really excited because I know that with extended reality, we're going to be infusing intelligence into a lot of our environments. And there's going to be an opportunity for people to learn in real time and for them to capture the data about that learning, and for their faculty members or their mentors, we go back to informal learning or micro credentials, to also capture that. So I definitely get excited about the new designs and opportunities that online learning and some of the new technologies, well, newer to us in higher education, will bring, just to make people's thinking visible, to them, that they can reason out and get the support that they need to make that next good learning decision, or to affirm that learning objective. So there's a lot of great opportunities for us to adapt online learning so that we have more hybrid and virtual experiences for so many different learning, academic programs, learning events. It's just the way you live. There are things to be curious about, and a virtual online format is a great way to engage and to inform.
Absolutely. Can you elaborate a little bit more on Eli's 8 conditions and CBAM and design thinking? I'd love for our audience to hear about these concepts.
Oh, I love, love, love those. So as a leader, it is always important to me to have a framework in mind when I come to new situations, or when you're dealing in ambiguity. And so there are 3 that have been very helpful to me throughout my research career. And that's how I was first introduced to all of them. And I'm still hanging on to them because they have been confirmed over and over, especially Ely's, Ely apostrophe S. He's now deceased, but he was a professor at Syracuse.
Okay.
His 8 conditions that are necessary for change. I have taken inaugural roles in almost every institution, and it has worked very, very well. It's not some magic sauce, but it is just a framework to make sure that we help account for the things that are necessary for successful change. So I would definitely recommend that anybody look up Evie's 8. And one of the first things is very dear to me, which is a design thinking connection, and that is there might be a better way.
Mm,
This is crazy, but it just might work. There must be a better way. So that type of thinking, and some people will talk about breakthrough thinking, we'll talk about growth mindsets, elastic thinking. All of those things are important to me. That's the kind of environment when people see, something must change. But in order for something to change, as Fullen says, someone has to change.
mm,
That's where CBAM comes up, and that's the concerns-based model for adoption, concerns-based adoption model. So for technology. And for me, anytime that we're talking about any type of change initiative that has to do with teaching and learning, I see those changes first through the eyes of the faculty member who is responsible for designing, creating, monitoring, and assessing that change. So that concerns based is something that, again, a call out to design thinking is that empathetic listening to the faculty. Some people are familiar with Bain and Company's book, the Founder's Mentality. It's one of my top go-to books and as a leader. And it talks about being obsessed with the front line. And that's that leading into the concerns of the faculty member. And so that whole model is, again, about people changing on their terms and the delight for me as a leader adjusting to those types of changes. So that's how Ely's change, and he has all those conditions that must be in place for uh, change initiatives to be successful. And most people get surprised when it's not, give me the Benjamins or the money. People want time. They want access, to the leadership that is there, and they want to know that there's a steadiness of purpose, that this isn't the whiz, that, this is just, a phase because you're asking them to commit. So that's how those three things, and I won't turn it into a college lecture, but I definitely recommend CBAM, and there have been researchers that have, revisited these different models and have added to them. The concerns-based model, uh, adoption model, I'm sorry, Ely's 8 conditions, and then an enterprise design thinking mentality have always served me well in leading change in higher ed.
makes sense. So then my question would be, so where does civic leadership play into all this? Do you need that in order to make these things happen, or is civic leadership a result of all of these things that we discussed earlier?
So civic leadership is a role and a conviction that someone takes on. So one of the things that's so important, and this is a nice tie back even to micro credentials, is that we have never been talking about trying to just train, people to feed the machine. We are talking about people with talents and aspirations, minds to think. So it's not just, skills and put somebody, in a role to just take off. I still believe in having an informed and an educated electorate, and that families, healthy families and healthy communities make healthy economies. And so the civic leadership is one of actually we have a micro credential in civic leadership at our university. Actually, have the book. It's called Citizens Power, and it's a no blame. No, you can see this. So it's a no blame approach. There are some principles for problem solving at the community level, and it's a partnership that we have with the Citizens Campaign, and sometimes some of the design thinking principles actually do work with the no blame problem solving approach. So they're related, and that empathy is related. So I can definitely see some of the ties in the change frameworks with the civic leadership. But if you just ask me, civic leadership, it's a role, it's a responsibility, and I think it also is a part of a holistic education. There's a difference between training and education. And so education to me is holistic.
Got it. Got it. Before I let you go, any thoughts about AI in higher ed right now? Excited about it? Scared of it? How do you think about it?
I am absolutely excited about it. And I think that a lot of times people see some of the movies that have the idea the robots are taking over, et cetera. But if we look at artificial intelligence, and the key word is first, it's artificial,
Right.
you know. So there's a real intelligence, and you still need your real intelligence in order to work with different machine learning applications. So it's not a substitute, but what it does
Love that.
is it helps give data and information to help you do whatever you need to do better. So it's for better insights. It's not to replace, but better insights. And yes, I definitely know that there is training and tuning and checking for biases and all these other things that need to happen. But I'm very excited about it because I see some opportunities for the ethical use of AI in a lot of different ways. So we don't have to be afraid. There are human skills, and people have purposes and passions. AI doesn't have, that same thing. There's still something called wisdom. We don't talk about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Wisdom's important, and that is what is needed for this AI present and future that we have.
Absolutely. I can't think of a better place to end it than right there. This was awesome. I really appreciate your insight. And if we don't stop here, we could go on for another hour at least. So, um, how can our audience get in contact with you? Do you have Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, LinkedIn? Let them know any books that you want to let them know about that you've authored or partnered with. You can let them know about those as well.
Okay, great. Well, the best place to get in touch with me is definitely on LinkedIn. So I am easily discoverable there. Don't get afraid of the last name. So it is Tonya Aman Kwatia. I also have an Instagram, but I don't use that as much. And I do have a great opportunity for those who are in the online space to offer my colleagues, Lauren Fuentes, Trey Martindale, and Tony Pena and I will have a book coming out. It's actually a handbook on online learning. So
Nice.
that it's a research handbook, and that should be coming out in June. So keep your eye out for that. And I just published a piece with Evolution, trying to start a conversation to get away from this non-language when it comes to credit.
Okay.
I'm not a fan of non-credit when it talks about the experiences that, adults get from military and work and other experiences. That should be celebrated. And I think there are other ways we can elevate the language and respect that credential in higher ed as we look at alternative stackable pathways. So reach out to me on LinkedIn and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you so much.